Okay, here is the next video lecture for Sensation and Perception, Introduction to Psychology. We've spent some time talking about the difference between sensation and perception. We've talked about some of the components of perception, mood, attention, culture, context. So now we're setting the stage for more discussion. We talked about thresholds, detection, and discrimination. Now I want to talk a little bit about laws of perceptual organization. Sight, our vision tends to be our major sense. When you ask people, if you could keep one sense and lose the others, which one would you want to keep? Most people would say, well, I would really rather be able to see if I had to pick one. And the brain devotes a lot of energy and a lot of time to processing visual information. And our brain puts together visual information in some pretty unique and interesting ways. Now, these are not in your book. These 5 things represent 5 laws of perceptual organization. And I'm going to kind of skip back and forth with some of these slides, so don't panic when I do that. I'm going to start with proximity. Okay? By definition, proximity simply means that units or things that are close together in physical space tend to be viewed as one thing. Again, units or objects that are close together in physical space tend to be viewed as one thing or one object. That's proximity. So proximal literally means close. So, okay, let's do an example of that. Without thinking too much about it, if I would ask you, what is this picture? What is this? You would probably respond, well, it's a class. It's a classroom. Okay, well, that's what I would say. But you also could say, well, this is a teacher. That's a shirt. That's a light fixture. There's a desk. There's a blue shirt. There's a yellow shirt. And that would be pretty annoying, right? Well, the reason that we don't say or report this image the way I just did, shirt, desk, shirt, light, is because these objects and people are close together in physical space. They're close enough together in this room that we just kind of look at it as one thing. Okay? Now, similarity, the next law of perceptual organization. Objects or units that are similar in appearance tend to be viewed or perceived as one thing. Okay? Again, objects that are similar or close in appearance tend to be viewed or perceived as one thing. Well, okay, what does that mean? Best example I can think of is if we were in a classroom, I would either have you look up or look down. In this case, I'm going to have you look up at this image. What is this? Most people will say that it's a ceiling. Well, it is, but you could say, well, this is a tile, and this is a tile, and this is a tile, and this is a light, and that's a vent. And that would, again, get pretty annoying after about 2 or 3 minutes. And these objects, they're all different. None of these vents are exactly the same in shape or size, but they're similar enough. They're close enough that we just look at it and say, it's a ceiling. Okay? Now, the next law of perceptual organization, this is a German word, Prägnanz. Prägnanz literally translates to simplest explanation. So write that down. Prägnanz means simplest explanation. Our brains have a way of processing visual information in a way that's the simplest for us. I'm going to give you an example how this works. This would work better in a classroom with a bunch of people, but that's okay. I think we can do it this way as well. I'm going to have you look at this object right here. And I want you to think for a second. Write down for me 2 things that you see. What does this represent to you? And I'll give you a second to do that. Okay. So here it is. This is the same object. So what do you see? My guess is that some of you are going to say, well, it's like a box between 2 lines, right? See the 2 lines, see the box. Some of you are going to say it's a forward K and a backwards K. And the third response I hear a lot is it's a W on top of an M. see that? All different ways of perceiving the same object, they're all correct. Those are the three most common ways to perceive this. And invariably when I ask in class what people see, I get those responses almost invariably. Now you could see other things. You might look at this and say, well, here is a valley and here's a mountaintop, and down here is a pit where all the bodies are buried, and this represents hell, and this represents heaven. And you're going to start getting really scared if I keep going. Sometimes the way people visually process information can reveal severe mental health disturbances. Schizophrenics, for example, have very disturbed and different sensory perceptions than a lot of us do, and may describe this object in the way that I just did. But the simplest way is the way most of us tend to go about explaining what we see. Next, closure, the next law of perceptual organization. We have a tendency to fill in the gaps. We want closure, so that's your definition, our tendency visually to fill in the gaps or to connect the dots, if you will. We also seek closure in our relationships. Think about it. If you're dating someone for a year and the person walks up to you and says, out of the blue, says, I don't want to be with you anymore, goodbye. Are you going to be like, okay? Or are you going to want answers? Are you going to have questions? Are you going to want to know why after a year this person is breaking up with you? Probably you're going to at least want some closure on that. And we do this visually as well. Let me get to the slide. I would ask you here, what do you see? What is this? And 9 times out of 10, you're going to respond, well, it's a circle. Well, it's really not a circle. It's a bunch of dots. But we kind of make it a circle. We fill in the gaps with our eyes, and we make that a circle. If you've ever done a connect the dots activity sheet as a child, it's the same concept. Let's go back to the last one. Law of common fate. By definition, objects that are moving in the same direction and at the same speed tend to be viewed or perceived as one thing. Again, objects that move in the same direction at the same speed tend to be viewed as one object or one thing. Best example I can think of are birds flying in formation. If you look up, you see birds flying south for the winter, or they're migrating. There's like hundreds, maybe thousands of birds, but they're moving in the same direction at the same speed. If you look up, you don't report seeing, well, there's a bird, and there's a bird, well, there's another bird, there's another bird. No, you look at this as one object. Same with airplanes that fly in formation. Moving in the same direction at the same speed, we tend to view these as one object. Now, the last part of the third video lecture here, I want to talk to you about incorrect perceptions. I'll at least want to introduce the idea of incorrect perceptions, and I'll expound upon them in the next video. Sometimes we get things wrong. We perceive things a certain way. Someone else would perceive it differently, and it can create conflict. I'm going to give you an example of my incorrect perception. My wonderful wife sent me the following text. Well, something very similar to this text. And gentlemen, you can think with me, and ladies too. This is what I get. It's a very long text. It's very nice. I love that you know me. I love your facial expressions. I love the way you say my name. La 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 blah blah blah. All the way, smiley faces, flowers, emojis to the end. So it's a long text. It's very nice, and it really touched me. It really made me feel special that she was thinking of me and sent me this text. So I thought, being a nice guy and a good husband, I need to respond. This is how I responded, and I didn't even spell out the word love or you or to. This is how I responded, and I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought, I have acknowledged her text. I'm sending her one back. Life is good. Right? So my perception of this text is, I love you, I appreciate you, and things are cool. However, and ladies, I can sense all the ladies watching this video lecture rolling their eyes or screaming at me through their laptops or their phones or their tablet. About 10 minutes later, I get a text back from my wife. Oh, really? That's all? And I was like, what do you mean, oh, really, that's all? I was confused. And her argument was, well, I sent you a really long text. It took 20 minutes to send it and put it together. It took you 5 seconds to not even spell out the words when you responded to me. And I was wrong. And I was in trouble. So I I had to try to convince my wife that her perception of this text was very different from mine. She thought I was being dismissive. She thought that I just didn't care. I was just trying to get rid of her, whatever, because it only took a few seconds to put that together. So, I don't know. Just different perceptions. So, sometimes we get into trouble and we perceive incorrectly situations from time to time. So, we're going to call that the end of this part. Thank you.